Well, good morning. Welcome to day 30 in our 31-day journey through the book of Proverbs, day 30, chapter 30. So, one of the interesting things I think about this chapter was first, there's an introduction that these are the sayings of Agur, the son of Jakeh, who isn't mentioned anywhere else in the Bible. So, we're really not sure who that is. There's lots of speculation that it might still be King Solomon, that these words have different meanings and roots and stuff. But we don't want to get caught up there. But I think what I found interesting is the kind of the format of the proverb changed a little bit. And then this idea that this writer starts with the numbers. He keeps saying three, no four. And let's look, I want to look through those lists. But in the first three verses of Proverbs 30, um, he's really showing a lot of humility here by saying that he lacks common sense. He's not mastered human wisdom, um, and then he goes into verses 4 through 6, which when I first read these, I'm thinking he's talking about Jesus. I mean, really, who but God goes up to heaven and comes back down? Who holds the wind in his fist? Who wraps up the oceans in his cloak? Who has created the whole wide world? Tell, or what is his name and his son's name? Tell me if you know. Like he's talking about God. He's talking about Jesus here, I have to believe. Um, and then, where do we find wisdom? It's Jesus. God is all knowing. There's nothing beyond. He has all the answers to all of our questions, right? He's put everything together as our creator. He knows all. And then he starts going into a request in verses 7 through 9, and then he gets into these lists. So I think it's interesting because he says, "Oh God, I beg two favors from you, like two things I want from you um, before I die. First, never let me tell a lie, and then second, give me neither poverty nor riches." Two things that he and we, you and I, can't produce on our own, right? Honesty and contentment. We have to teach children both. It's not in our human nature. We have to teach kids to tell the truth, right? We lie at times for self-preservation. It's as a means of protection. We feel like we can't tell the truth or harm is going to come. We lie to gain. To get what we don't have. Just watch kids interact with each other, right? We have to teach them to be honest. We have to teach them to be content as well. That this is enough for you. This is what you need, right? We could have a discussion with a child about how much of this they can eat in one setting, how much ice cream, how many popsicles, how much pop if they're allowed to have it, like how late can they stay up, how much TV or phone time do they get, right? We teach them contentment, that enough is enough for you. This is appropriate. So he's asking God to give him both honesty and contentment. He says with the contentment, because he talks a little bit more about it, he says, just give me enough to satisfy my needs. I don't want to be rich and I don't want to be poor. Riches and poverty both of them lead us to weakening our dependency on God. If I'm poor, then I can buy the lie that God doesn't care about me. God's not going to provide for me. I don't do enough for God to, I don't deserve good from God. He's not going to care for me. So I depend less on him. I have to find other ways to get what I need if I feel like God's not going to provide them. When we're rich, we feel like I don't need a God. Like I can do my own thing. Life is good. What I've been able to create is fulfilling. It's meeting my needs and beyond. I'm doing everything I want. I don't need God. So both riches and poverty, wealth and poverty, not will, but can weaken our dependency for God. So it's wise that we ask to have what we need and nothing more and nothing less. Let's jump to verse 15, because this is where we kind of see these lists. He says, the leech has two suckers that cry out more, more. There are three things that are never satisfied. No, four. And then he does that repeatedly. So first we see this idea of discontent, right? The leech has two suckers and they want more and more. They're never satisfied. And then he gives us some other examples of things that are never satisfied, that can never be content, that enough is not enough. The grave, the barren womb, the thirsty desert, and the blazing fire, right? They will continue to consume and want as much as they can. There's no limit for those. Then we go to verses 21 through 23, and he says, here's three things that make the earth tremble. No, 4, right? He does this repeated again. It cannot endure, right? This is things that shake the earth, figuratively. A slave who becomes a king, an overbearing fool who prospers, a bitter woman who finally gets a husband, and a servant girl who supplants her mistress, right? He's showing us an example of things that are out of order, things that have been tipped upside down, that a slave becomes a king, an overbearing fool prospers. These are things that shouldn't happen. This is not the order of the way things belong. Then he goes right into verse 24. Here are 4 things on earth that are small, but unusually wise, right? They're very small, so maybe he's mentioning that because we would think that because of their size, they're not wise. They're small. But he says, ants, they aren't strong, but they store up food all summer. Uh, Hyraxes, they aren't powerful, but they make their homes among the rocks. Locusts, they have no king, but they march in formation. And lizards, they're easy to catch, and they're found in kings' palaces. And I started to think about this, and what those would mean for us, the wisdom we get. We know ants have been used before in the Bible and in Proverbs, teaching us to work hard and save, right? Do what you got to do when you can, because there's going to be times where you're going to need, and you can provide for yourself if you plan accordingly. The hyraxes, these are small animals that live up in the rocks. They put themselves in safe places. They've protected themselves in an environment. And I think that's wisdom for us to not go where we know it's going to be dangerous, to stay safe. Don't put yourself in unnecessary risk, financially, physically, whatever it is, to stay safe in safe places. And then the locusts, they have no king, but they march in formation, talking about working together, this idea of community, that they're able to organize and work together, that we can do this. We can work together. We need each other. And then lizards, they're easy to catch, but they're found even in kings' palaces. I struggled with this one a little bit, but I started to think, if they're everywhere, right, they're easy to catch, which makes them easy prey, but they're found in the palace. And I thought, maybe this is figurative for us, thinking about we have an enemy. And there's a lot of us, and we're everywhere, right? And they're easy to catch. And maybe for the enemy, some of us are very easy to catch. But we have a Savior who sits at the right hand of the King, of the throne, right? Who's going to bring us into his eternal palace. That just because there's a lot of us, and just because some of us are easy to catch, doesn't mean that we can't be where we're supposed to be, which is with our Savior and our King. Then he goes into verse 29. There's 3 things that walk with stately stride. No, 4 that strut about, that 3 verse 4 thing. And here he's talking about a lion doesn't turn aside, a strutting rooster, the male goat, and a king as he leads his army. Just the translation is that they walk well, that they're walking well. Do we walk well in this life? We're called to follow Jesus. This is my interpretation of this, but we're called to follow Jesus, and do we do that well? And the confidence that we can have, like a lion, a strutting rooster, a goat, male goat specifically, that have nice beards, and a king, the confidence that they have leading his army, right? The confidence that we have, the boldness that we can have, shouldn't be in ourselves, but in Jesus. That he's who gives us the ability to be able to walk well, to walk with a posture figuratively in this life, that we are upright, right? We are strong, we are confident. And then people will see that by the life we live. And that should deflect and reflect back to Jesus. So I hope you found this proverb interesting. I did. I like the breakup of it, from what we've seen in the first 30 chapters. And I look forward to tomorrow, our last one, Proverbs 31. I will talk to you then. Thanks.